Swift & Company is part of an industry that's been on a journey that's relied upon, the immigrant workforce. It's complicated work, it's in hot conditions, cold conditions, and it's always been that kind of stepping stone in many respects into the middle class fabric and society of America.
Right now, employers don't have much of a choice. They enroll in E-Verify, and they're told the workers are legal. Okay, they're legal. If they're legal, how come Swift had 1,200 illegal workers and we were using E-Verify? The system doesn't work. And if you're going to punish employers to use a system that doesn't work, you're not going to have a solution.
We had an overzealous human resources department who was asking for additional documents beyond what was required by the I-9 process. And we were sued by the federal government from the Department of Justice on asking for too much documentation. And basically, the lawsuit was basically sitting there saying, hey, Swift, you discriminated, you're asking for too much. And we're sitting there saying, but we're trying to balance the needs of only hiring the legal workforce and ensuring that this person is who they say they are.
En mi familia somos 5 conmigo y tengo mi niña la más grande. Ella nació en México, en el estado de Guanajuato, y ya me la traje para acá chiquita ella. Y mi segundo niño, él nació aquí en Greeley, Colorado. La tercera niña, pues también ella nació aquí. La primera vez que aplicamos para el permiso de residentes fue en el 2000 y estamos esperando todavía ahorita la cita de conmigración porque estamos aceptados ya por migración del permiso ese porque el hermano de mi esposa se hizo ciudadano y aplicó para toda la familia. Cuando yo estaba trabajando en SWIFT, pues estaba usando otro nombre de otra persona, pero a seguro derecho.
We would get a lot of complaints, and I say a lot, 1 or 2 a week from citizens in other parts of the country, particularly the Southwest, California, Arizona, Texas, who would call this office and say, someone's using my name and they're earning wages at Swift. We would contact Swift, and Swift, by the time we got out there, the person would no longer be there. So we notified the federal government, and that must have been probably in mid to late 2005.
The journey actually started back in February of '06 or so forth, around February of '06, when one of our facilities, actually the government subpoenaed our I-9s, which is the form used by employers to certify that a person's identity is who they say they are and has been checked. And through the course of basically June and into July, we gave the government everything they asked for. We had nothing to hide. We had heard rumors that ICE was gearing up for some big event. I mean, through the pipelines, through different contacts, through consultants, through the law firms, something big was happening. And then in November, we basically did we did a last ditch. It was like a Hail Mary. It was that shot in the dark to try to prevent the company from being severely impacted. We went to court and to try to get an injunction against any raids.
They raid all the plants at the same time, and so what the International did, our International Packing House Director, what he did is he had a conference call with the presidents from all those locals, and we talked about what was happening at each individual plant. That's when I found out in Kentucky, the Kentucky plant, they just served the warrants on 6 or 7 individuals. And ICE, the federal government, went in and just got these 6. They did not round up everybody. They did not detain everybody. So that proved, at least to me, that proved that the federal government knows how to do it correctly within the constitutional limits.
They didn't raid one of our main facilities in Louisville, Kentucky. In fact, they handled that plant the way we asked them to handle it. Tell us who you're looking for, and we'll help you to identify those people.
I don't even think most of us can imagine what a white-collar family would have done under those circumstances, because it never happens to white-collar people. Our system is broken. If we want to talk about justice, that's one thing. If we just want to talk about law and order, then I guess we will proceed in the fashion we have up until now.
In May of 2007, following the December 2006 raid, I was invited and had the opportunity to go to Washington and speak. What I said that day, and I've been misquoted and misinterpreted on this, I said that the federal government needs to hold ICE accountable. And before there are any more of these immigration actions, their methods of operation and their behavior needs to be closely examined. The day of the raid was peaceful, but many families and children were devastated by parents being arrested and detained. Children, citizens of the United States, were left without nurturing parents. You know, never once did I say that individuals with illegal status should be allowed to stay here illegally. You know, I feel like I had strong support as I returned from the Washington trip itself and in the days and weeks that followed. But then at the same time, I was also getting the criticisms and statements like, well, he went to Washington and stabbed us in the back.
I disagreed with his position on immigration. I disagreed with his position on some law enforcement issues and came out and opposed him in this most recent election.
There were a couple of very, very hateful mailings that were done by anonymous sources who, one of them was this letter, and with it was this check that had a signature, forged signature of mine, and it was made out for $3,000 and some, and it supposedly was to represent the cost to the state of Colorado of every illegal person.
At least one family, and perhaps more, were not having their cases brought up until October of 2008.
Los cargos era que me dijeron porque usaba papeles que no eran míos y que trabajaba en la compañía con esos papeles, y por eso me acusaban como criminales. Dijo el juez, tienes fianza, y por la vez me dio fianza también por mi familia. Por eso yo estuve todavía 2 meses más ahí. Pues, para mí fue en total 7 meses en la cárcel, así, casi un año. Estamos peleando ahorita y ojalá que... Tengo la fe que sí voy a ganar, aunque no gane la residencia, que me da un permiso de trabajar ya con eso.
The union was not only essential to getting legal representation for those arrested, but they were essential to providing money for groceries for the families who lost their primary breadwinner.
Llegué aquí el 5 de enero y estuve como 15 minutos aquí en la casa y le dije a mi esposa, es que yo vengo bien malo, le dije. Dijo, vámonos al hospital.
This issue of the costs of illegal immigration are affecting every single area of society. I could go through the budget of the state and I could probably point almost in every area additional costs that are being required as a result of illegal immigration coming into Colorado. It's affecting our hospitals. You know, you go down to the emergency rooms in the hospitals, and for the most part, they're full of Spanish-speaking people. You have the prison systems, huge numbers of people there illegally in this country that are in those jails. It's costing the taxpayers more money.
But they're paying taxes too. If they're buying anything that in the state that has a sales tax on it, they're paying sales taxes. They're paying, you know, gasoline taxes anytime they purchase gasoline. They're paying property taxes. We figured about half of the undocumented workers were working on the books, so they were in fact paying payroll taxes and income taxes. And they weren't quite covering all the costs, you know, that we estimated, but they're covering 70 to 80% of them. The states and localities end up bearing a lot more of the costs and getting less of the revenues than the federal government does.
You can't bring in people from a third world country at the rapid speed we are and have them understand freedom and liberty and what made our country great. Our schools are being inundated now with people that can't speak English.
What do we do with someone that came here at 1 or 2 or 3 years old? What do we do with that person? And that's where the emotion comes in. They've been here their whole lives, they feel American, they speak the language, they're part of the culture, and this is their adopted country.
We're going to have 70 million baby boomers who are now going to be retired, not working any longer. And so I believe immigration is one of our demographic safety valves. It allows us to import workers who will help support Americans in their retirement.
If they're legalized, then guess what? They have access to Social Security benefits, and Social Security is a redistributive program. The poorer you are, the better deal you get out of it. So by importing large numbers of poor people and then legalizing them, what we're doing is creating an extra burden on the Social Security system. There's no boon.
There is an amount of money bordering on the billions of dollars that's in the Social Security Trust Fund that is assigned to numbers that don't match up well with the person who's working. And it's called an earnings suspense file. And it's been around since the beginning of the Social Security Administration, but you can see in the 90s, as we've seen more undocumented immigration come into the country, the amount of money in that earnings suspense file growing dramatically.
It seems odd to me that we allow goods to go back and forth across our NAFTA borders, but we do not allow any large number of workers to do that.
It's wrong on every level. It's wrong to hire the illegal aliens. It's wrong to hire them at $7 an hour. It's wrong to fill the schools with kids that don't understand English. It's wrong against our own children. So you can see it's just wrong on every level.
I think the problem are the forces that cause immigration, and whether it be wage disparities or access to jobs, healthcare, education. There's an imbalance around the world, and that is the problem.
They're not coming to the United States because it's the land of milk and honey. They're coming to the United States because there's jobs, and there's not jobs where they're at.
And obviously, people south of us, Mexico and Guatemala and so forth, want the best for their families. No doubt about that. We would all want the best for our families. And if they think they can get away with getting over here to, quote, Disneyland, I don't blame them for doing that. I do have a problem with the fact that their moral standards somehow are such that they're willing to say, well, I'm going to break the law of another country to get over, to feed my family, rather than turn inward to their own country and overthrow some of those individuals that are so corrupt in those countries.
What we can do is help them in their own countries to save themselves. And that's the real key here, is that first world nations survive this immigration juggernaut so that they can help solve the problems in the other countries.
And when we have a system that makes it impossible to feed your family in your own country, and also impossible to get a visa to go where the jobs are in another country, that's our responsibility. That's our responsibility, and we have to fix this system.